When my father died, I didn't cry. Not because I didn't love him, quite the opposite. My father, Richard Langston, was my world. A stubborn, sharp, big-hearted man who raised me with integrity and fire. I didn't cry because I believed, truly believed, that even in death, he'd left me something, a final message, a gesture, a trace of love. I was wrong. The funeral was modest, but the crowd wasn't. Sleek men in tailored suits hugged my stepmother as if she were royalty, in mourning. My half-siblings, Nate and Victoria, children of his second marriage, sobbed like actors in a daytime soap. I stayed silent, standing apart. Grief twisted in my gut, but I held it in. My father used to say, "Real pain is quiet. It doesn't need an audience." 2 weeks later, I received the official notice, reading of the will. I went alone. He would have wanted me to stand tall. The lawyer's office smelled of leather and old wood. I walked in, and there they were, Diane, the Ice Queen in pearls, seated with an air of smug calm. Nate slouched with indifference. Victoria, elegant and cruel, with her signature Chanel glasses and that fake pouch she wore like perfume. The lawyer, a balding man with thick files stacked around him, cleared his throat. "This is the last will and testament of Richard Charles Langston." He opened the document and began reading. "To my wife, Diane Langston, I leave the Langston estate, including all property, assets, and financial holdings." My ears rang. "To my children, Nathan and Victoria Langston, I leave the remaining shares of Langston Holdings, along with the family trust." My stomach dropped. "And to Emily Langston, daughter of my first marriage." He paused. "I leave nothing. She is not entitled to a cent." Silence, a sharp, aching kind. I stared at him. "What? That can't be right." "I'm sorry, Miss Langston. It's all here. Signed, notarized, and witnessed." I looked around the room. Diane gave me a slight, poisonous smile. Nate looked away. Victoria raised one perfect brow, clearly enjoying the moment. "This isn't real," I said, voice shaking. "My father would never. He loved me." "People change," Nate muttered under his breath. "He was sick. You manipulated him. This is fraud." The lawyer leaned forward. "There are video recordings of Mr. Langston confirming his wishes. I can show you." Video. My breath hitched. If he really said it on video, then maybe it was true. But I knew my father. This wasn't him. "Show me," I demanded. The lawyer picked up a tablet and tapped the screen. The video began. There he was, my father, alive again, at least for a few seconds. His gray hair neatly combed, his blue suit impeccable. He was sitting in the old library. "Hello, Emily. If you're watching this, I'm already gone." My heart broke just hearing his voice. "You're probably wondering why I left you nothing. The truth is, the video glitched. It froze, buffering, error." "What happened?" I asked. The lawyer tapped again. "Nothing. The file was corrupted." "That's odd. It worked before." "Of course it did. How convenient," I said coldly. Eyes locked on Diane. She didn't flinch. I walked out of that office empty, betrayed, and boiling with questions. I had lost my father, lost everything he built, and inherited something I never wanted, my family's hatred. But the universe has a strange way of balancing scales, because 3 weeks later, an unmarked package arrived at my apartment. Inside was a single USB drive, no return address, no letter, just a small note, handwritten. She couldn't erase everything. "The truth is here." I stared at it, and in that instant, I knew whatever was on that drive was going to change everything. Asterisk, I didn't plug in the USB right away. 4 hours. I just stared at it. It sat on my kitchen counter like a bomb, silently ticking. What if it was fake? A virus? A trap? Or worse, what if it really showed my father saying those awful words again? What if he meant them? but I couldn't stay in that limbo. Around midnight, I poured myself a glass of whiskey, took a deep breath, and opened my laptop. The folder contained one file, r_Langston_private.mov. Double quotes. My hands trembled as I hit play. And then I saw him. Not the stiff, cold version from the lawyer's video, but him, the man I remembered. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, no tie, a scotch in one hand. He looked tired but sharp, eyes full of the fire I knew so well. "If you're watching this," he said, "it means the will they read wasn't the real one." I froze. I'm not surprised. Diane always knew how to twist a knife without leaving fingerprints. He chuckled bitterly. "Emily, I need you to know, I never meant to leave you out. Never. You're my daughter. You're the only one who never wanted anything from me but love. You never tried to impress, never lied to my face. That's why they hate you." Tears streamed down my face as he leaned closer to the camera. I started recording everything. Every shady deal, every whispered threat, every moment Diane and her precious little demons tried to manipulate me. They wanted me dead and silent, but I'm neither. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a flash drive, the same model as the one I now held in my hand. "This contains the real will, signed, witnessed, hidden from them. I gave a copy to someone I trust. If you're watching this, she must have sent it to you." My mind raced. "You'll need to move fast. The minute they realize you know the truth, they'll do everything to bury it." Again, he looked off camera for a moment, as if hearing something. "Trust your instincts, Em. You're smarter than all of them combined. And one more thing." He leaned back and smiled, eyes suddenly soft. "I'm proud of you. Always was." The screen faded to black. I sat there, stunned, shaking, my heart pounding like a war drum. The real will, hidden, protected, and sent to me by someone who risked everything. I had no idea who she was, but I had a hunch. The next morning, I drove straight to the Langston estate. It still stung, seeing the gates close behind me, like I didn't belong, like I was trespassing in the house I grew up in. I rang the bell. No answer. But I knew someone would be there, someone who never left. I walked around the side, toward the garden, and there she was, Marla, my father's longtime housekeeper, practically family. She raised me more than Diane ever did. She used to call me Little Lionheart. She was pruning roses when she saw me. Her eyes widened, then misted over. "Emily." I ran to her, hugged her tight. "It was you," I whispered. She didn't deny it. "He made me swear never to tell anyone until the time was right. You were always meant to have everything, child." Diane found the first will and destroyed it, but he outsmarted her. I pulled back. "Is the real will still safe?" She nodded slowly. "Yes, but not here." He hid it off-site, in a private safe deposit box. Only you can retrieve it. I have the key. From her apron pocket, she pulled out a small brass key with a tag. Box number 313, Harbor Bank. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Everything I thought I lost, my name, my worth, my father's love, was still alive, sealed in that box. But Marla's face grew grave. "They'll come after you now, Emily. The moment they realize the truth isn't buried, they'll stop pretending to be civilized." And she was right, because before I even got to the car, my phone buzzed. A text from a blocked number. "We know what you have. Walk away, or we'll bury you next." Asterisk. I stared at the message on my screen until it blurred. "We know what you have. Walk away, or we'll bury you next." It was no bluff. The Langstons didn't make threats. They made moves. Ruthless, quiet, devastating ones. This wasn't some dramatic family feud over money. This was war, and I had just declared it. But I didn't back down. Not now. Not after seeing my father speak to me through that recording like he'd reached from the grave. I had the key. I had the truth. And for once, They were terrified of me. I drove straight to Harbor Bank. It was tucked downtown, old-school granite walls and iron doors. I walked in with my chin high and heart THUDDING. At the front desk, I slid the key across the marble counter. Safe deposit box, number 313. The woman behind the counter checked the number, looked me up and down, and nodded. A few forms, an ID check. And then I was led into the vault. It was colder than I expected. The attendant guided me to a narrow metal drawer, box 313. She stepped away to give me privacy. With a trembling hand, I unlocked it. Inside was a sealed envelope, labeled in my father's sharp handwriting, Last Will and Testament, Do Not Destroy, and under it, another USB drive. I didn't open it. Not there. Not where eyes might be watching. I tucked the contents into my bag, signed the release, and walked out of that bank with my heart beating like a drumline. But as I reached the street, I froze. A black SUV idled across the road, windows tinted, engine running. I didn't wait to find out who was inside. I ducked into the first cafe I saw, bolted through the back, and sprinted 3 blocks before catching a cab. I wasn't being paranoid. The Langstons had eyes everywhere. Money bought silence. Money bought tracking, and I just became their most dangerous liability. Back at my apartment, I locked every window and door, closed the curtains, and sat in the glow of my laptop. I opened the envelope first. The document was notarized, dated 2 months before my father's death. It explicitly named me as the sole inheritor of the Langston estate. Everything, the house, the company, the accounts, all mine, Diane, and the others were mentioned only once, excluded due to breach of trust and attempted coercion. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. This was it. This was the truth. Then I plugged in the second USB. This one was different from the video I had received. It was a full compilation, folders of videos, audio recordings, scanned letters, even financial documents. My father had outsmarted them in every possible way. He knew they would try to erase me. He anticipated the lies, the forged documents, the poison they'd drip into every conversation after he was gone. That's why he didn't just leave a single copy of the real will. He left evidence. And not just any evidence. He named names in one of the video clips. He sat across from Diane, secretly filming. If anything happens to me unexpectedly, he said, I want you to know, I've made arrangements. You won't get away with this. Diane laughed. Don't be so dramatic, Richard. You're just tired. Take your pills. Funny. You're always reminding me about those pills. But I had them tested. Her smile faltered. That's when I paused the video and just sat there. My skin crawled. They hadn't just schemed to erase me from the will. They might have killed him. Not metaphorically, actually. Subtly, over time. A little too much of something, a little less of something else. I couldn't prove it yet, but if I had these videos, there could be more. A digital folder labeled confidential_Marla caught my eye. I opened it. Inside was a recording of my father talking to Marla, just days before his death. Marla, if anything happens, I need you to make sure Emily gets everything. Not just the will, all of it. The footage, the backup drives. They're going to come after her. I'll protect her, Mr. Langston. He nodded. You always have. My heart broke and hardened at once. I felt grief and rage weaving themselves together inside me like steel. This wasn't just about inheritance anymore. It was about truth, about legacy, about justice. And I wasn't going to let them win. I met James Halpern the next morning with all the files. He reviewed them like a man watching a bomb countdown. This is massive, he muttered. This doesn't just overturn the will, it opens a criminal investigation. Then let's open it. He looked up at me, serious. If we do this, Emily, you're not going back to a quiet life. The media will get it. The board of Langston Holdings will panic. Diane has powerful friends. Victoria has connections in high society. Nate, I is unpredictable. You'll be in their crosshairs. I already am. He nodded slowly, then said the words that would change everything. Then let's file. By noon, we had filed an emergency motion in probate court, requesting an injunction against the current will and immediate validation of the true one. Alongside it, we submitted the forensic reports on the videos, signatures, and time-stamped data logs proving manipulation by Diane and her children. And just like that, the Langstons were backed into a corner. The next day, my phone rang. Unknown number, I answered. You think this is over? It was Victoria. I didn't speak. You think Daddy's little favorite is going to waltz back in and take everything? You don't know who you're messing with. Actually, I said calmly, I do. I lived with you. I watched you lie, cheat, and smile through it all. She hissed. You'll regret this. No, I said. You will. In court. I hung up and smiled. The day of the hearing arrived, cloaked in storm clouds. I stood outside the courthouse, gripping the folder of evidence like it was my shield. I had barely slept. My body ached from adrenaline. My mind raced with worst-case scenarios. But I reminded myself, this wasn't just about a house or a bank account. This was about restoring my father's truth, and mine. Inside, the courtroom was packed. Cameras were forbidden, but that didn't stop the media frenzy outside. Langston heiress cut from fortune, the headlines had said last week. Now they'd get a new one. James sat beside me at the plaintiff's table. On the other side of the room, Diane wore all black again, mourning a man she helped destroy. Nate and Victoria flanked her, sharp and polished as ever, but their eyes betrayed something they'd never shown me before. Fear. The judge entered, a sharp-eyed woman with a reputation for zero tolerance and razor logic. This hearing concerns a petition by Emily Langston, contesting the last will and testament of Richard Charles Langston. Ms. Langston, your side may proceed. James stood. Your Honor, what we present today is not just an alternate version of a will. It is the will, the legitimate, notarized, and documented last testament of Mr. Langston, made without coercion, fraud, or diminished capacity. The will previously executed and read was falsified, presented with forged signatures, and does not reflect Mr. Langston's final intentions. He passed the judge the folder. We also submit digital evidence, including video recordings, metadata analysis, and direct testimony from Mr. Langston, which we will play for the court. The judge scanned the document, then nodded proceed with the recording. The room dimmed as James projected the video onto the screen. There was my father again, this time in high resolution. No glitches, no missing files. If you're seeing this, it means they did it. They found the draft I left in the office, and they changed it. But I made sure this version was safe. Emily is my daughter. She's the only one who's never betrayed me. I want her to have everything, because she's the only one who earned it. You could hear a pin drop. Then the second video played. My father, confronting Diane. You think I don't know what you're doing? You think I don't see how Victoria manipulates the board, or how Nate siphons money through those shell companies? Diane's response was icy. You're paranoid. This is the illness talking. The judge raised an eyebrow. This is very serious. You're alleging criminal conspiracy and forgery. Do you have corroborating witnesses? James nodded. We do. We'd like to call Marla Santos to the stand. Marla walked in slowly, looking like the heart of every Sunday morning. She took the stand, placed her hand on the Bible, and swore in. Her testimony was gold. She confirmed everything, from the moment Diane discovered the original will, to the day my father handed her the backup copy. She even described the safe deposit box in detail, including the security protocol, he insisted. She memorized Diane's lawyer objected. Relevance, hearsay, all of it was shot down. Then, things got uglier. James presented a forensic handwriting expert, who confirmed the signature on the fake will didn't match Richard's verified handwriting. Then came the financial analyst, who detailed shell transfers from Langston Holdings' 2 off-book accounts connected to Nate. By the time the last expert left the stand, the courtroom buzzed with tension so thick it crackled. The judge turned to Diane. "Do you wish to respond to these allegations?" Diane stood. Her voice was ice and iron. "My husband was not of sound mind. He was sick, confused, paranoid. That video could have been deep-faked, for all we know." "Objection," James said instantly. "We have third-party verification from a certified technician, time-stamped, with original device metadata. These are authentic." The judge nodded. Objection overruled. Diane's lawyer whispered something urgently in her ear. For a moment, her mask cracked. Victoria sat stiff beside her, pale as paper. Nate stared down at his hands, realizing the walls were closing in. The judge exhaled and straightened her papers. "I'm ready to issue my decision." The room held its breath. I squeezed my hands under the table. "This court finds the original will, the one currently in probate, to be invalid due to overwhelming evidence of fraud, coercion, and forgery. The revised will submitted by Emily Langston is hereby accepted as the authentic and final testament of Richard Langston." A wave of disbelief swept the courtroom. Then she added, "Furthermore, this court will refer the matter to the district attorney for investigation into possible criminal actions by the respondents, including but not limited to fraud, identity, theft, and tampering with legal documents." I felt my breath leave me. It was over. I had won, but as Diane rose from her seat, she turned to me and whispered something I'll never forget. "You may have won the money, Emily, but you just made enemies with nothing to lose." And the way she said it, it wasn't a threat, it was a promise. "I always hated this house," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of her shaking breath. She stood in front of the ornate mirror, wearing one of Mother's old silk robes like armor. In one hand, she held my father's antique lighter, the gold one he used for cigars. Engraved with his initials, her reflection in the mirror looked nothing like the polished, untouchable Victoria I grew up with. Her mascara was smudged, her hair tangled. There was a wildness in her eyes, not rage, not grief, but emptiness. "You don't have to do this," I said, taking a slow step forward. "It's over. You lost. But that doesn't mean you have to destroy everything." She laughed, a brittle, broken sound. "I already destroyed everything, Emily. You just cleaned up the mess." I watched her fingers flick the lighter open. Click, flame. I felt my blood go cold. "Put it down," I said quietly. She looked at me through the mirror, her eyes glassy, her hand trembling. "He looked at you like you were the future," she said. "He looked at me like I was ... a shadow." "You don't have to live in his shadow anymore," I replied. "Neither of us do." But I could already smell the gas. She'd soaked the curtains, and with one simple motion, she tossed the flame. The drapes went up like a torch. The fire spread to the carpet, then the wall. Smoke swallowed the air. "Victoria," I screamed, leaping forward. I grabbed her wrist, yanked her away from the flames just before they engulfed the ceiling. We stumbled into the hallway, coughing and choking. She collapsed against the wall, and I dragged her down the staircase as the fire roared above us. The front door flew open. Security and firefighters burst in, shoving us outside. We stood on the lawn, covered in soot, as the mansion burned. Behind us, Victoria sat in the grass, stunned and silent. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just stared. I watched as the home my father built, the same home they tried to take from me, crumbled into smoke and ash. A poetic ending, maybe, but not the one I wanted. The house was just wood and stone. I had already reclaimed what truly mattered: his truth, my name, and my power.